Right. So I want to open up and say thank you for coming here. It's been an exciting couple of days already. But I'm here to talk about AI enhanced automation, right? I know everybody's probably a little bit tired listening and hearing about AI, so we'll keep that light. We'll talk more about what we did with our AI and why we are using it versus the million things that it may do in the future. Um, and then also we're going to kind of tie all this in from a journey perspective. Been doing automation for about 10 years, and we failed in a lot of ways, and we've learned a lot of really great things. So I want to say, like, this is where we started, this is where we got to, and this is what we did it. So you guys don't make the same mistakes that we might have done in the early days. All of this will ultimately kind of roll up into risk management, which everybody loves, right? But as part of managing risk and compliance, so and dealing with regulators and audits, it's not everybody's favorite thing to do, but it's still super important because if we do all these, we have all these controls in place, if we can continuously monitor, continuously adapt, and take actionable, have actionable outcomes, it will greatly help us all out. I have an agenda, but once again, keep in mind, it's going to be pretty high level. And then at the end, I'm going to leave about 5 minutes for questions and answers. And if there's something that we don't have time to do, I believe we are in 414, booth 414. So feel free to swing by and hit us up or hit us up online. But let's get cracking. If you do have a really urgent question, don't hesitate. Normally, I like to make these interactive, but it's kind of loud. So maybe the 5 minutes to the end is the best way to go forward. Okay, so what is security automation, orchestration? A lot of people know about SOAR, right? But if we go back even 10, 15, 20 years, where did this all start and why are we doing it? And why do you see automation and why do you see AI literally in every booth here, right? So when I was a security analyst and a SOC manager many, many moons ago, we had very repetitive tasks. So if this, then that. And we're like, well, when you have 100 people working in a SOC, now you may have 100 different ways of doing that. So it wasn't repeatable, it wasn't predictable. So we started writing Python scripts and Bash and PowerShell to kind of help out and build these jobs that we could execute on a trigger. But it was still very manual. And if one of the people that with like a 40-pound brain that had built this monster left the company, it was really hard to transfer the knowledge. So the founder of our company and myself and some others were like, this is ludicrous. Why hasn't somebody built a system where you can kind of make this easier, where you can have a platform that holds all of these kind of tools, very customizable scripts, and then you can trigger them on maybe a cron schedule or on a webhook being received or a manual action. Like, hey, go and run this threat hunting query throughout all of our different data lakes and SIMs and across endpoints and Active Directory, merge it all together, and then try to make sense of it all, right? So that's SOAR. Our company's been around since 2014, give or take. So that was the early days of SOAR. If we now look at where we're at, we've kind of expanded past all of this. So it's called low-code automation orchestration. But you can't automate what you don't know. So if you go out to a company and you're a consultant and you're like, how do you do phishing? We don't know, but we want you to automate it. You're like, oh, that's going to be fun, right? Because you kind of have to have some sort of process. As it step one, ingest the phishing alert, wherever that comes from. Step two, normalize the data. Step three, look up the user in Active Directory. Step four, see and query and hunt the SIM or your DMARC, all your other email services to figure out where all of this kind of glued together and what else you can find out about it. So that's security automation, right? Generally what we try to do, I'm former military, so I like to answer the who, what, when, where, and why. If we can tell analysts, who's generally the primary focus, on what those 5 W's are, it makes it really easy for them to conduct their investigation. So who did it? Was there an outside actor? Was there an insider? What did they do? Did they log into AWS as a root user, do something strange that they shouldn't have done? When is super fun because we have some really large global customers. So it depends. You may have a team in the US, a team in EU, a team in Australia, and another team in Hawaii or something, right? If you can't follow and track the time for when the alert was ingested or when it was produced, ingested, when it was claimed, processed, closed, remediated, you kind of lose a lot of that fidelity. So even by having the ability to just track timestamps throughout every action, automation, and orchestration, that is extremely valuable, because when you do tens of thousands of cases or incidents in a year, you now have the ability to say, well, where were we at 11 months ago? Or where are we at now through automation? And now you can diff it and say, like, okay, well, we spent 4 or 8 or 40 hours building out this use case, and it is saving us 100 hours a month. Well, time is the one thing we can't buy, so automation makes these things repeatable, predictable, and kind of where you can continue to then scale and learn from it. The where is super fun when it comes to the cloud, right? So we currently are deployed in a lot of on-prem, like private cloud, hybrid cloud environments for some of our customers, but also in AWS. So we're in the US, EU, UK, Japan, Singapore, and Australia. The reason why we did that is we can see attacks as they go around the globe, or botnets trying to scan and project, trying to do reconnaissance activities, whatever it may be. But from a security analyst and from a threat and actor perspective, we now have the ability to glue all of those portions together and kind of make sense of it. Often we work with different types of government organizations as well, so now we can then ship and share that back with the community, saying, here, this is what we're seeing, this is what we did, figure we'll share that with everybody. But ultimately, we need to also then answer the why, the how, right? Is that me? No? All right. The why is mostly important when it comes to insider risk. We often see people not necessarily knowing that they did something bad. So if we can have that dialogue and conversation saying, well, you violated some sort of policy, and then you can bring that into the manager and complete and conduct your investigation to then say, well, this was really not a malicious no malicious intent. They did do some things that violated policy. Maybe we need to update our communications plans or some training to enable the rest of the company to not do these things again. Or let's build even more tighter controls, technical controls, to then actually not just compensate, but mitigate them from happening again. Ultimately, as a CISO at Swimlane, one of the things that I focus on is like, how do we improve our threat detection, incident response, but then also glue that into business intelligence? Because when we start with, endpoint security, like SIM triage, phishing triage, the baseline kind of core use cases from a security organization, when you start automating them, maybe 50, 60, 70, 80, or 100%, now you have time to do the fun things. Because one of the biggest things that I get to do every day is work in cyber. Like, it is exciting. I have a blast. We get to do really cool investigations around the globe and help our customers and their customers to solve these business problems. So if you take anything away from me today is, hey, cyber and information security is fun. People should go to work, Monday morning with a smile and leave Friday night with a bigger smile. Like look at all the things that we did. We had a great time. And the way that we've lastly, or like very recently, kind of tied all this together is with the responsible use of AI. Not everybody knows how to query Splunk, ArcSight, Elastic, QRadar. These are all different query languages, right? So just something simple when you onboard a new analyst that may not be a subject matter expert in that technology, to then be like, hey, help me write a query for Splunk that does X, Y, and Z. And then that gets built out in front of you, and then you can trigger and run that query. So the responsible use of AI is not asking our AI, how do I paint a house, or how do I cook a lasagna? Because that doesn't, we didn't build that in. But if you ask it, hey, what do you recommend I do from these observations or these signals? We do that really, really well. Everybody good? So from scripting to UI to repeatable, predictable, and from focusing mainly on security and cyber incident response, we now have also expanded, and you'll see here in a bit, through the use of AI, through the use of truly orchestrating our business and helping our customers and their customers orchestrate, do just business intelligence with legal workflows, whether it's communications plans, even like in the OT and fraud space. So in our headquarters in Denver, we have the old RFID door controllers. Everybody probably have them, right? So simple use case that we did, not just for pattern of life, and I know in Europe, some of these things are a little bit more frowned upon, but I live in the US. So one of the things that we do there is we can, onboard and offboard people. And when we do that, part of that is that RFID card. We don't have to put in a separate ticket because it's already orchestrated. So if someone gets hired, here's your card. It's already active. It's already tied to your name. All of that was automated. We didn't have to have a human in the loop to waste everybody's time, right? And if we do get a signal that the maintenance staff walked in the middle of the night and tried to get access to one of our secure rooms and then started seeing weird network traffic, like now we can tie the physical space to cyber and information as well and then make more sense of it. So don't think of it as just like endpoint detection or phishing or SIM or XDR, MDR, triage. That's a good place to start to make sure that the smiles go in the right direction on your security analysts and IT teams. You can read more about this online. I want to make sure that we do leave enough time to kind of talk about or answer some questions as well. But the key things that we focused on first were like the case summarization, the recommended actions, like I already mentioned. One of my favorites are like the crafted prompts. So if you ask me what I hate at work, I hate doing Excel and spreadsheets and taking CSV data from 30 different sources and then using like pandas to merge, meld, and join, and like that makes no sense. You do it once, and at the point of time when you hit save, that thing is already old. So to work with dynamic data and crafted AI prompts, I instead now, rather than sending a bunch of dashboards with line charts and pie charts to the board, I'm saying, hey, here's our current risk. Here's how well we're doing. Here's how many alerts we processed. Here's how many, endpoints we've quarantined. Like, does that really matter to them? No, it doesn't. So instead, I was using a crafted AI prompt. I was like, hey, my name is Mike Lyborg. I'm the CISO of Swimlane. To the board, please summarize and write a paragraph telling me how me and my team has been doing month over month, quarter over quarter for the last 36 months. Now they get that. I was like, oh, and by the way, schedule this to run once a month or whatever that cadence can be. So then now you can set that cron job to ask the same question, change the data set or the time span, and now you don't have to do any more transformations and CSV exports and Excel spreadsheets and or send emails. So it becomes very repeatable, predictable. Everybody's happy, right? And one of the hardest things is taking the data and transforming it. Many of us in here probably work in ETL, right? Like you got to export, you got to transform, you got to kind of map a Splunk signal to your data model or to map it and make sense of it to some other EDR tool. So with our schema, we can now automatically kind of help you glue things together. It's like, that looks like an email, that looks like an IPv4, that looks like a MAC address, and then kind of help you along your automation journey. All right, everybody good? And all of this, the reason why we're talking about all of this is, when we started in security, we probably had one job that we had to do. And as you grow older, get more bags and wrinkles, you also pile on a lot more work that needs to be done. So, if your primary focus for many years was just incident response, Well, now you're also maybe having to glue that together with supply chain, because in order for you to understand and impact your incident response process and programs, like you may also have to know what the entire supply chain and where these things come from, rather than just creating a Jira ticket and asking somebody else. And the CIO and CISO deliverables, the thing that I see nowadays is we just, day after day, we're asked to do more and more and more. And like a couple of years ago, was it 2 years ago, we had some banks in Silicon Valley not do so hot in the US. And the board and our CFO came to me and it's like, hey, can you do a risk assessment on this other bank? I was like, absolutely. And we went to work. Had nothing to really to do about my day-to-day job, but we're really, truly just now advisors as well to help the business secure our customer data, our internal data and controls, and then provide all of this in a repeatable fashion for our auditors so that we can then hopefully say that, yeah, we're compliant with DORA, NIS 2, GDPR, all the fun ISOs and SOC 2 audits that you're doing. And moving on to like how we do all of this is, like I said, I'm former military, so it was heavily on zero trust, where I don't expect our business to even trust me, like inspect what you expect. So we've broken all of these kind of domains down, but rather than operating in silos, where somebody owns the network, somebody owns identity, somebody owns your SaaS application stack, and somebody owns your data. That doesn't work well at the velocity that most of, or if not all of us, are operating in right now. So if you can try to visualize, and I apologize for this mirror drawing, I try to make sense of it, but these are the things that we do every day. But we started, as part of this journey, we started with our data. We made sure that every piece of data was tagged and mapped. We knew what the classification was, and we knew who should have access, and definitely knew who should not have access. And then how do we get to the data? So now we can then automate and orchestrate. We have the different workloads and application stacks, and where should it be accessible from and via networks. So the zero trust is not just an agent that runs on your endpoint that you just, okay, I'm logged in via my zero trust network. I now have access to everything. It should be, you should only have access to what you need, right? And then your device management and identity management. There's a lot of identity solutions out here, and it is truly a new frontier, especially with API security and other means and ways that we can interface with the data. But by automation orchestration, we can kind of run all of this through. So at the end of the day, if you look at the red, well, it's hard to see on the screen. On the very right are all the incident response actions, remediation actions, isolate, block, move, quarantine this, send a communication that. These are things that we don't have to do manually anymore, and people don't have to guess, because we build out these playbooks and components. We put them on our marketplace, and we can share them with you to help you expedite your automation journey, so you don't just write Python code and you run that on a Linux box somewhere. All right, I think we still have like 8 to 10 minutes, right? So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. The other thing that we learned was the value of all of this data and telemetry. So if we look, if you guys can see me, if you look over here on the right, so we bring everything in and we have the concept of a system of record. So we take in all of these different signals and we pump it into the system of record. Then we aggregate and correlate, and we say like, okay, Mike is traveling, he's in London, he used biometrics to authenticate into his MacBook Pro. But he now is egressing from another IP address because he's a black hat and he's on their hotspot. So anything that we see, we can then correlate and make sense of. Because if you're doing an investigation, because maybe something happened to my MacBook today, right? Like we can't spend time where we are then pivoting between 20 different applications to then figure out, okay, MDM says this, EDR says that, we got an MDR alert, or maybe all this is coming through your XDR, sorry, very acronym heavy day. But so we kind of just make sense of that, so that when we recently onboarded a new SOC analyst on our team, we train him for 2 weeks on our platform, And this individual was up and running, claiming cases, triaging, because he had the base concepts of this is the incident response process. Oh, here are the recommended actions. Here are the run books. Here's everything that we did. Made sense. And now in between, we can then send them to subject matter expert training to then truly get to learn all the source signal systems. We're also just right now, internally, if anybody's interested, we are rolling out our new EDR, so new agents on every like endpoint at least. We're not missing a beat. It's not like a massive cutover where we lose fidelity or we're worried about, oh, how do we have to change our incident response process? Because it's really just a different signal and different actions that are now available, but we can then keep the same and the old EDR up and running. The user interface never changed for the analyst team. And so it's always the same. And all your reporting still stays the same. But the cool thing is, as we get complete this transformation, now we can then say, okay, in 24, here was our mean time to respond and remediate, right? For like an endpoint event. Now we can say, what's it like in 25? And say, like, was that a good business decision? Was that a good investment? And the whole time, map, every time we run these kind of checks, the cron jobs, we can then also say, like, all right, do we have compliance, configuration issues, or violations? And float all of that up to a dashboard. This is a handful and a mouthful, right? But if it's greater than certain risk score, so we do context-based risk scoring that we allow our customers to customize. So you can tune the risk scoring to meet your kind of internal processes as well. But then create a case. Cases can also be auto-closed by automation, but an incident is something where you have to have eyes on, right? Like now a human is spending time on this investigation. And then at the end of it all, on those cron schedules, do your scheduled and aggregated reporting and kind of go from there. I could talk 8 hours to this one picture, so I'm not going to bore you anymore. But I truly want you guys to come and hit us up if you do want to take a deeper dive and learn a little bit more about how and why this works really well for us. The favorite part of everybody's day is GRC. I can see, everybody's like eyes just open up, right? But the problem is, all of these controls, they generally map together. So there's a secure controls framework, right? So some smart people around the world came together and they built the secure controls. So now you can actually then say, instead of answering 8,000 control questions, individual controls and pieces of evidence, they boiled it down to like 1,200 something. And we can then tie that back and see like, okay, well, where does this map? And then what's the priority that we should do? Because maybe one of these pieces of evidence, if I do that now, it maps to 34 frameworks and 900 controls. So now you can have a business weight and impact on the prioritization on your compliance frameworks. Because it's my favorite thing to do is, it's not really to do this piece of it, but to manage risk, because you can have the best governance documents and best policies written, and you can disseminate that, and everybody signs the dotted line in your organization saying, oh yeah, we got it. What it boils down to is really, what are your technical controls? Are you continuously monitoring them? And what happens when somebody violates one of your policies? So I want you to, this one's easier than the spaghetti, but this is a company, Optiv. Everybody probably knows Optiv. They did I'm a mega geek dork, so I like the periodic table, right? But it shows all the different things that we generally measure on. So how are we doing with digital transformation? How are we doing with business alignment? Are we introducing too much friction because we're too stringent on our controls? And people are now just mad because they can't access the system the way they used to, or we change something to kind of offset the harmony in our business operations. The cool thing with our platform, because it's pretty flexible, you can literally build this chart to look however you want, or anything else you want via widgets as well. So all of this, to kind of sum it up before we go to questions, is what have we seen in the last like 10 years? Improved and immediate collaboration. We don't have to do these costly lookups. Everything kind of just flows through our system. Sure, we got to feed the beast. We're always in there tweaking, tuning, and keeping it. It's like you don't buy a sim and throw it in a closet and then like, we got it. We checked the box and we're good. So same thing goes with automation. You have to maintain it. You have to update it as you change and improve your internal business processes. Obviously, you're in there tuning as well. Our teams are way more efficient now than we've ever seen or knew was pretty much possible because of how we're kind of staffed and organized and orchestrated all of these different tools. The way we communicate with our product and engineering teams automatically when we get a new vulnerability or attack surface, something else pops up, we change an endpoint in our APIs, like we can know and then be like, hey, where's the change order or request for this endpoint change? Have we done a pen test on it? What did that look like? And at the end of the day, like the spaghetti drawing, right? Like all the connected silos and tools and telemetry. You have to, in order to make sense of today's environments, in hybrid cloud or full cloud and on-prem and what user activities, insiders and outsiders, if you're not bringing all that information together and making sense of it, you're probably missing a lot. All right, now we need to do questions. Oh, I'm saying there's no time for questions. I talk too much, I apologize. But please swing by our booth. I really appreciate everybody swinging by today. And we'll take it from there. So thank you, everybody.